Welcome to the show, Indie Lee. I am so excited to have you on.
I am excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I would love if you could give a little bio of who you are and where in the world you are currently joining me from today.
I'm joining you from Westchester, New York, and I'm the founder of ndie Skincare. I am one of the pioneers in the clean skincare industry.
I would love to know what led you into being such a clean beauty pioneer. When you were growing up, was this something that was in your household? Were your family really into this? Or no, what led you into this space?
Definitely not. Um, Not that like obviously my parents were like mindful, but this really wasn't something that was around. When I came into the industry, the clean food movement was just really starting. Organic agriculture was really taking hold. In fact, I hold on, I have to hit okay, otherwise it wasn't going to record. So I'll start that. So my parents were not into, really reading labels. When I got into this, people, you have to realize my age, I'm 53. So like my generation is now catching up. We didn't grow up with this. We grew up in the world of ultra processed foods and conventional beauty. And so I did not really understand it. I was a lotions and potions junkie. I absolutely love the beauty industry, but my background was accounting. I'm a public private CPA. I worked for HBO and managed their international finance division. And I left when I had kids and I wanted to spend more time with them. I got very involved with the farm to table movement and built a 750 square foot greenhouse in my backyard. I know. I'm actually building a farm right now, so I'm in a rental. I know we could dive into that. I'm
I
really
know I have so many
excited.
questions.
I absolutely. We could talk about. Oh, please, I can totally talk all about that all day. Um, but I left. I got very involved with the farm to table. I built that huge greenhouse in my backyard, and I was bringing edible flowers to Whole Foods, etc. And I ended up being diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis in 2008. So I couldn't work in the greenhouse or the farm that I built because my hands were swollen. I couldn't open and close them. I could barely get shoes on certain days. And went on a form of chemotherapy called methotrexate, which absolutely helped significantly, but was not easy on my body. And I couldn't work in the greenhouse, and people were like, "What are you going to do?" I'm a type A personality. Sister says she's pregnant. So I started concocting products for my nephew who was about to be born because I didn't want anything harmful on his newborn Tushy. Knowing, here's the interesting thing, I knew babies were born with a toxic load. I understood that they were able to tie it to products that the mother was putting on her body while she's pregnant and what she could be ingesting. Didn't think about the larger picture. So I said, oh, well, I'm going to use ingredients that I was growing and create baby products and unveil them at the baby shower. Everybody loved them, said, this is what you need to do. I'm like, please, it's not an industry. No one cares about clean products. Like, it really wasn't in this, really mainstream, I would say. Um, and so I went my own way. And then I started to notice I was losing vision out of my left eye. And that was November 4th of 2008. I went to the doctor and he immediately sent me for an MRI. And 45 minutes later, he called and said, please come in. We need to discuss your results. And I always tell people it was the most impactful day of my life. It was the day when I realized that I was a passenger and not the driver of my own life. I was a check the boxer of everything I thought I needed to accomplish. Because when we spoke, we went back and forth on, I was like, tell me what it is. And he's like, I'd rather discuss it in person. And finally he said, I'll Google it and I'll go to WebMD. And he finally said, fine, do you have your keys in your hands? And I shook them and I said, in my hands. And he said, you have a brain tumor. And I said, I'll see you in 15 minutes. And it was a transformational day. Not a doom and gloomer. I am probably one of the most optimistic people you will ever come across. And I realized, like I said, I was a passenger and this was my wake up call, and that something incredible would happen if I allowed it. I didn't know what it was. But more importantly, I really want to live every day fully present. Right. I find due to the phones, we tend not to be present. We tend to be in here and scrolling and doing all those things that we know kind of take us out of being mindfulness. And that's when I realized that that needs to stop as well. And so got to the doctor's office. He said, I don't know what it is. It doesn't look like cancer. And found out that I had a rare tumor and I was given 6 months to live. They believe it to be autoimmune and they said, get your affairs in order. And I went to Johns Hopkins, Duke, NIH, Sloan Kettering. I finally found a doctor. It was interesting. When I went to my neuroendocrinologist and I asked how this was possible, he said, we're tying these things to the environment. Of course, I pointed out, I eat out of a greenhouse. What are you talking about? And that's when he asked me that question, what do you put on your skin? And I realized this was so much bigger than products for just children. This was now my calling. Nobody should be saying goodbye to their children like I was. And so with 6 months to live, I decided I was going to find a doctor who would allow me to live, but I would create a line that's safe and effective, looks beautiful on a shelf, and more importantly, educate and empower others about what they're putting in and on their body.
It's
So
such an empowering story, and I mean, I applaud you because I feel like most people, if they were to get that diagnosis, I mean, the fact is that you wanted to go and make a difference for other people, and a lot
yeah.
of people would be like, "I'm taking the time. I'm gonna do the skydiving thing. I'm gonna do all the things that, I only have 6 months to do," and I feel like you were like, "There's such a bigger picture here.
Yeah,
Whether or not I have 6 months or not,
exactly.
I need to make a movement." I wanted to ask you because rheumatoid arthritis, I mean, I feel like everybody and their brother right now is either talking about having it or knows someone who has it.
Yeah.
What is it for someone who's like, I've heard of it, but I don't know what are the symptoms of it?
Mhm.
What is it? And how does it impact my overall health?
No, thank you for asking that question. It's something I'm very passionate about because I have 7 autoimmune diseases. I'm actually on the board of the Autoimmune Association because you're absolutely right. You're seeing more and more people being diagnosed or know people. So rheumatoid arthritis is like the degeneration of your joints. Right. So, and there's no, once it degenerates, that's it. There's no going back. And so it's inflammation, right? And pain in your joints. It usually is bilateral, meaning it's mirrored on both hands or feet. It starts usually in your fingers and in your feet, around your ankle and toes. And it can spread throughout your body where eventually you are wheelchair bound and worse. And so it truly is one of those diseases that is degenerative and there's no cure. There are treatments that you can do to help mitigate and get control of the flares, which I'm very lucky that I was able to do. But much like Crohn's, which I also have now, there's not much you can do. So autoimmune is when your body basically, healthy cells, they basically attack itself. And so depending on where it's attacking, you're going to see degeneration of different organs, etc. So for me, I have Crohn's, so I have ulcerative colitis. So I have my entire intestinal tract, and then I have my joints. Um, I had ovarian failure, the brain tumor, bad pregnancies, lost a twin, all those things are all tied to my body basically attacking itself. And they're seeing more and more of these things being tied to the environment. So, what is that again? So, they're like, what does that mean? That's what you're eating, what you're breathing, what you're putting on your body, energetically. Stress, they know, can trigger it as well. But once you start typing them off, you can't undo them. So there are a whole class of diseases. There's over 100 of them, and they're now impacting about 80 million Americans. So two-thirds environmental, one-third genetic, and about 75% of the people that it impacts are women.
This is such an interesting topic, and I do want to talk about the brain tumor. But before we get into it, I think what's really fascinating is that you said, you had this greenhouse, you were starting to live. I think people on the outside would go, how is this possible that this is happening to this woman? She is so healthy. And for context, um, my son has about 9 established food allergies, and I am convinced it is an autoimmune
Absolutely.
disease. And everyone's like, "How is this possible? It's helping to you." Like, I I was making my own skincare when I was pregnant. I was eating really healthy. I'm a yoga teacher, like I do breath work and meditation. And I think people are it was very confusing for people to see this because they're like, I feel like this shouldn't be happening to a person such as yourself who is like, here I am eating a bag of chips on the couch and you're talking about making, refined sugar-free
Yeah.
desserts. Like, I'm so confused why this is happening to you. So, when your doctor was saying like environmental toxins were possibly contributing to this, is there, I mean, it's so out of our hands of like we're doing the right things and
Yeah.
yet how,
Yeah. No,
it's happening.
it's a great point, and there are a couple of different answers. None of them are great. Number one, let's go to the food, right? So you've got ultra processed food people didn't know. So don't forget what you're putting in your body, it like forever chemicals, things like that. Like once you have these things, sometimes you're not going to get rid of them. And so, or you have to do heavy metal detoxes, etc. It can also take up to 7 years and 5 to 9 doctors to get a diagnosis. So it's incredibly difficult. And back when I was diagnosed, this was 15 years ago, there was still so little known. I mean, I didn't have an autoimmune association like I can go to now, which has tons of resources. Highly, highly recommend checking it out if you're somebody who thinks you might have autoimmune diseases. Because again, women are typically called hypochondriacs, or you're tired, or you're stressed, so you're taking time to get that diagnosis. And once you have one, many more can appear. So you could have triggered something from stress, etc., and then the kind of they start lighting up. The other thing is I think it's called intragenerational. So think about this, something your mother or your grandmother used could be impacting you and your child, meaning that you are carrying it in your body and it is impacting the eggs that you have. And so it is being passed on to generations. So something you could be doing everything right. And your family could have thought they were doing everything right, because let's face it, there isn't a lot of transparency. We see what's going on right now with Kellogg's. But I mean, oof, I wouldn't want to be on that side right now. But again, we didn't know. People weren't listening. We didn't have social platforms to be able to amplify and ask these questions. And so I think many cases, our children or ourselves are a product of what our parents were doing too. And so that's why we need to be so mindful of what we're doing with our young adults as well.
No, yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for speaking on that. I wanted to ask, you had mentioned that the doctor had thought that this rare brain tumor was connected to an autoimmune disease.
Mhm.
Did they elaborate any more? Was this because of the rheumatoid arthritis? Was this just like a coincidence? You happen to have RA and this rare brain tumor? Or was there any correlation that they were able to piece together for you?
We'll never know. And what it looks like now is something called Rathke's cleft cyst. So that is a congenital issue, right? However, the fact that I had the brain tumor, I had it removed, and then it grew back, and I got something a year later. In fact, I am now just 3 or 4 months out of brain surgery again. So I had brain surgery a second and third time in June because the tumor regrew and I was having symptoms. And so what my doctor said is there can be no, like, there's no way that this isn't correlated. That all of a sudden you had Crohn's, you were going through probably some of the most significant stress that you've ever been through your life. And then all of a sudden the brain tumor, which had stopped growing, started growing, was causing all sorts of issue. I had uveitis, I couldn't see out of my eye, all these things. That when we decided to take the MRI early, we were like, oh, I need brain surgery. Um, had the surgery June 7th and 9th, and I haven't been public with it, but I'm not hiding it. I had my last MRI 2 weeks ago, and I have another brain tumor. So, oh, please, thank you, but I'm fine. I'm better than fine. These happen to me so that I can speak with such conviction and such passion with you about this cause of bringing awareness to autoimmune. There's no way. The doctor's like, one doctor's like, oh, it's congenital. Another one's like, there's no way this is coincidental. Because the truth is, there is no one autoimmune doctor. So it's very hard.
It's so hard to and I think like intuitively you know things about yourself and when the doctors are Like I remember talking to one of my doctors, and nothing related to brain tumor, but it's something as simple as my son had eczema when he was really little, and I was like, I know this is an autoimmune response, and the doctor was like, it's eczema. Every baby gets it. And I'm like, I'm not
But
buying that.
why?
I That's exactly what I said, but why do all these babies have it? And she just brushed it off like
It's
it's
not,
what babies do.
yeah. And the truth is, they don't know. There
I
is
know.
very little research that is put into the autoimmune, like all their research and drug trials and all these things, there's so little put in. So, how would you expect all the doctors to have all the latest research when it's far and few between that we're getting the type of research that we need to be doing and seeing what the exponential impact is? It's now at the point where it's too big to ignore, but I
Mhm.
really believe it's because we don't have a doctor that is specializing just in autoimmune. There are centers for excellence, but you have to find people who really specialize in it, who are going to be able to do the work to figure out with you. Because as you know, as you have one, all of a sudden you might get others, and all the symptoms contraindicate. Well, wait, it could be this, uveitis. They're like, well, it could be the tumor is pressing on your optic nerve, or it could be Crohn's, because so it's like, how do
Mhm.
you figure it out when you have multiple diseases, multiple symptoms, and they all contraindicate?
You had mentioned that you started to lose sight out of your left eye. Were there any maybe more subtle symptoms that you had that you thought, "That's weird that this is happening," but not making that correlation that this could be a brain tumor?
Yeah, I went into menopause at 36, 37, which is kind of early. So when you look at where my tumor is, which is the bright at the third eye, you've got the pituitary gland right there. You've right on hypothalamus. That's where the optic chiasm is, which is why I was losing vision, because as this tumor or cystic tumor pushed on the optic nerve, things were getting, squished. So I started to lose my period. I started to notice my flares were getting worse. So you just really need to listen to your body, and you kind of knew something was off. I knew when I had my MRI back in April, I was going to have brain surgery again. I just knew.
No, it's one of those things that I think even if you go to the doctor and you're like, "Something seems a little off here," and we were just talking about, like, there's so much research out there that a lot of doctors just don't have the, knowledge necessarily of, but I've always been like, the body doesn't do things just for the hell of it. It's not like I
Correct.
feel like having a crazy hot flash here just because it's a Tuesday, like, I'm always like, these are all signs that there's something and it doesn't have to be major. It could be, but it could be as simple as like your hormones are a little off. Like I remember being like 12 and my period was so incredibly painful. And I remember thinking like, I don't feel like this is normal, although every single girl in my grade is going through the same thing. Like this doesn't seem like a
Right.
normal thing for 12-year-olds or
No,
younger now it seems like to be
no.
going through.
First of all, think about the age at which women are getting their period. Or
Yeah.
they're not even women, they're babies. I mean,
Yeah.
11, 12 years old. We just need to take a look at what we're doing to our environment. And I do mean like in and on our body. We have to just be so mindful. I mean, let's look at, you were talking about your son having all these allergies. Let's think about it. Most doctors don't go through a heavy training in nutrition.
Mhm.
And yet we're saying your gut is your second brain, and it's what, gut health is everything. And yet our doctors are not schooled in that.
Mm.
So, and that's not their fault either. So, I think there needs change, and I think that we're going to start to see it. At least I'm hopeful, because of social media. We're calling things out and we're asking questions on a much wider broadcast, like this podcast. And I think it's an interesting time. But you're absolutely right. Something is not right in the world, and you take a look at indigenous tribes, and they don't have the things that we have, right? So you go, wait, they're not having the painful periods. They're not having these allergies to everything. They're not showing cancer, autoimmune. Now what's fascinating is It's starting to. And it's not because of the industrialization, it's because of what we're doing to the water, what we're
Mhm.
doing to migratory birds that then bring these, microparticles and they leach it. So it's a much bigger problem.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
It gets overwhelming.
I know, it really is. I always think about, like, the more you know, the less you know
I
when
know.
things and, like, you go
Yeah.
down a rabbit hole of, like,
Woo.
"Oh my god," and all of this, and then this is changing, and yeah, it's overwhelming, but it's also, in a sense, like, very empowering because it's like, if we stop allowing all these things to happen, there could be a major change, right? There
Yeah.
could be a bigger movement of taking these toxins out of our environment and you kn I honestly, I feel like a lot of people just don't even know about it. I can't
They
imagine that
don't.
there's a lot of people that are like, "I'm fine with it. I'm fine with my skincare being toxic. I'm fine with the water having all this cr" like, I like to
Yeah.
believe a lot of people just don't know,
They
and
don't
they're
know.
starting to.
And I think that people are waking up because
Yeah.
we're now broadcasting, but it's very hard with everything
Yeah.
between fake news, what's right, what's wrong, who do you believe? You go down these rabbit holes. But when you start to look at the actual science and see the levels of autoimmune occurrences increase, you're looking at healthy people with zero history all of a sudden get you have to pay attention. You
Yeah.
absolutely have to. So, but it's a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely. What was the first thing you did upon getting this? We can even go as far as, like, your RA diagnosis
Mhm.
and or your brain tumor. Were you, "Okay, I'm gonna do, like, a heavy metal detox?" Is it even more subtle, "I'm just gonna go home and get a new water filter?" Like, what were those first few steps that you thought, "Okay, I'm gonna start making a difference in my health to see if I can eradicate this or at least make a difference in it?"
Right. So you have to realize this again 15 years ago. So there wasn't a lot out there. Um, or it wasn't as much readily available. I couldn't get my hands on it. Now you can Google and go into Chat GPT and get a whole protocol. It's insane. But for me, it was taking a look at what I was eating. And that was something that the doctor also said. Let's take a look at your diet. I went low gluten. I really cut back processed sugars. I went no caffeine. All the things that I knew that I could do. But again, when you're not aware, you don't know what you're supposed to change. So I did a lot of research. Is what happened. Really, when I had rheumatoid arthritis, I went into research mode. Um, and that's when I kind of realized that there needs to be a lot more conversations around this, which I'm thrilled are now happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What are you were talking about food being, one of the things that you made a big change in. What do you think is an issue right now in society as far as, like, what are we eating that are red flags that you think are contributing to a lot of health issues?
Ultra processed foods.
Yeah.
I mean, it's no longer food.
Mhm.
And I don't think people realize the scale of how bad it is. So I think it's that. I think this hustle culture, got to have multiple income streams, got to do this, blah, 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 blah. We looked for fast convenience because eating isn't about nourishment, it's about survival. So let me just get that in, right? And then hurry up and do all those other things that I have to get done so I'm quote unquote successful and making the most of our life. So I think that because of this ease, or we're looking for this ease and we're looking for something quick, we're not doing the due diligence and taking a look at what's really in our food at this time. And I think that it becomes really evident when you take a look at what is going on here in the US versus overseas. Like if you take a look at I know anybody who's on social media can see what's going on with, well, how you formulate cereal here versus how you formulate cereal in Europe is very different. FYI, the same thing happens in skincare and beauty. And so I think that's part of it. But when we take a look at food, there's no doubt for me, there's just too much research that's showing ultra processed foods. And then you go into the GMO and you go into our water system and whatnot. But a quick fix is really starting to cut that out.
Because you are a pioneer in the clean beauty space, I wanna ask you, what were some of the things that you were looking at when it came to your skincare that you thought, "Oh my goodness, this might be contributing to some of my health problems?" Like, and you don't have to call out any brands or anything, but was it like, "Oh my god, this has, synthetic fragrances in it, and
Yeah.
that's causing an issue." Yeah.
Yes. Phthalates was a big, I mean, for me, it was like, wait, I have all these hormone issues, and this is an hormone, an endocrine disruptor. Okay, so phthalates is a major one for me, is taking a look at those synthetic fragrances. And then you go into the ethylated products that we know are could be like the formaldehyde and all those related, right, family of products that could be possibly carcinogenic. So I think for me, it was a lot of that and just really taking a look because there was no standardization. I mean, again, it was Wild West when I got in here.
I think it's so wild that they it's one thing that my mom and I talk about. She's like, "Well, why would they allow these things into your to skincare products?" I'm like, "I'm not the mastermind behind all of this stuff." And, a lot of this stuff is cheap. A lot of this stuff is just like good filler to like not good, but like filler to make into these products. But it's crazy. Like how much garbage is put into skincare. And even with my son with eczema, I remember them giving me some steroid cream to use for him, and there were 3 forms of parabens
Yep.
on it. And I'm like, you're a doctor. Like I'm like just an average Joe, and even I know that this is like
Yeah.
highly carcinogenic and problematic for
Yeah.
to have in skincare.
I know. Well, again, it goes to who benefits and where does the information come from. You can go down such a rabbit hole of lobbying and the chemical industry. And by the way, everything's a chemical, water's a chemical. But I think one of the best examples of how things get left unchecked is talc, right? We were using, my mom used talcum powder, Johnson and Johnson, right on that area where and now we are looking at ovarian cysts and there is talc in there. I wrote an article way back 12 years ago for the Huffington Post, and I will tell you the amount of hate I got and like death comments is chemical industry.
That's so wild to me. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a flat it's a lashback for people that are going through, or maybe they don't think that what they're doing to their children is they don't want to be called out on it. You know what I
I
mean?
think it
Like
comes
it's
down, yeah, I think it
yeah.
comes down to one thing: money,
Yeah.
profitability.
So what is the problem with you were saying phthalates? So these synthetic fragrances, why are they such a problem and what kind of health issues can they potentially contribute to for someone?
Well, just take a look at any endocrine disorder, right? And we're looking at all these various different diseases start to pop up or become more. The word popular is not right. So I can't think of the word. I'm missing the word, but you're seeing more of these cases, right? The volume of cases on various different things, especially related to reproduction. Look at infertility on the rise. Male sperm count has decreased 50%, I was reading, in the past few years. And people are like, well, they don't use it on their body. Really? Have you watched what they spray under their neck, what they're putting on, what they're washing their body with, what they're shaving with? I mean, we're opening our skin and we're shaving and we're putting, like, we have to start taking a look at these.
No, I know. It's absolutely wild, and I think it's even if you have a male in your life who maybe doesn't shower all that often or use any of these creams and potions, you have to think, like, if he has a partner that maybe wears these things and then they,
Right.
they
Aftershave,
touch each
or
other and
perfume. Absolutely. You need to think about this. It goes beyond, way beyond any perfume. It goes to all your personal care products. And then, but also, like, let's take that step back. What did this individual's mother or
Mhm.
grandmother use?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So it's not just, it is taking care of future generations. This isn't just let's talk about me, and how do I take care of myself or my immediate child. What are we passing on as a legacy this generation to the ones that follow us? And it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be this way. You don't have to sacrifice efficacy. And I'm not a fear monger. I'm an 80-20 gal. Please know I am by far, I'm not that woman at all. I'm not. But what I think is important is that I know the risks, I make the choice.
Yes. Yes. I
That's
think
what I'm asking is people to become the most empowered version of themselves so they can assess those for themselves.
absolutely. And I feel like it's different now. Like you can buy skincare or beauty products that work really, really well, just as well as any of these conventional other products, and they're good for you and they aren't toxic. I think it would be different if it was like, we don't have any other alternatives. It like kind of like doesn't do anything for you, but like it's the best option we have.
Right.
That's not the case anymore. Is we
No,
have
it's
great
not.
options.
Absolutely. And not just in the skincare, but also within the fragrance,
Mhm.
within the makeup industry. Let's talk about toothpaste. Let's talk about cleaning. I mean, you can go down a very long litany. And that's why I think when it comes down to it, it's a lifestyle choice.
Yeah,
And how do
absolutely.
you make the changes that work for you and your family that are good for you and also good for the environment at the same time? And what your level of comfort is.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can start small and you can work your way up to more things.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I was reading on your website that you have 1,300 plus banned ingredients in your skincare line. What are some of the top banned ingredients and why are they a problem? Like if somebody were to go through and turn over their skincare jar, what are some of the top banned ingredients that you don't have in your skincare line and why you had mentioned some of them, but why are they such a problem?
Well, because again, it goes down to what they can do to the environment and what they can do to our physical health, and not just our current physical health, but like I said, those generations to come. Because again, we're seeing these in the placenta, we're seeing these in the meconium with children. Like we know that we are impacting what we're putting on. So I think it's taking a look at what are the long-term effects, is potential carcinogen, right? Um, Hormone disruptors, endocrine disruptors are big ones. So you have the irritants, skin irritants, potential inflammatories. So it's not just a one size. And like, if I said DEA was DA, TEA, BHT, dimethico, like it just, you go down a rabbit hole. And here's the thing, what's fine, what I can tolerate, maybe somebody else couldn't tolerate. I always say, like, don't say, like, I understand people go, well, it's non-toxic. Well, let's let's ask this. If I have something that has strawberry in it and somebody is allergic to strawberry, that's toxic to them. Peanut allergy. If you have a peanut allergy and I'm using something that has nut, that is toxic to you. So I also, I think people think that if it's clean, then it has to be okay. Well, arsenic, it's natural. Kind of don't want it, like you have to, like, snake venom, you can go down, poison ivy, all those things. So again, it's not as easy. And so what we do is we formulate to the EU directive, which has way higher standards. And we have a lot of our products are Cosmos certified, which is basically overseen by leaders in sustainability and diversity, biodiversity. So everything from the farm that things are grown and the farming practices, agricultural practice, to distillation, extraction, harvesting, manufacturing, cleaning up the manufacture, all of that are certified under this.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely incredible, and I love that you adhere to the EU standards that they have because they're so much higher. And even myself being in Canada, I think we have like 600 banned ingredients. I think the US is 300 and change. And then like EU is like it's like 1300. It's
No, it's
like
more.
absolutely insane.
It's more. It's absolutely more. But again, I go to, why can I formulate something here and formulate something different over there? Why is that allowed?
Uh,
Or why is it not allowed over there? Like, what?
mhm.
Why are we having this conversation?
Yeah, no, I know. It's absolutely crazy. W For someone who is like, "I really don't get what clean beauty means. Like, why is it different than buying something at the drugstore that doesn't meet the clean beauty standards? Like in layman terms, what does clean beauty mean?
It's a fantastic question because there is no answer. So it's really based upon the interpretation by whomever is setting that standard. So what is clean at one retailer is not clean at another retailer. Let's make it really confusing. So my standard of clean is doing no harm to people, the planet, or any of its inhabitants, meaning animals. So we are Leaping Bunny cruelty free certified since 2012. Like I said, we're committed to sustainability wherever possible. Sometimes we have to think about the compatibility of a product and what are those choices, right? So sometimes we can't get something that's PCR, so it might be virgin plastic. Is that my preference? No, but that's sometimes what we can do. And if I know it's the safer choice of all the others, okay. But you see, by and large, we use PCR glass wherever possible. Um, so that's for me, clean is not doing harm.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember walking into this would have been years ago, into Sephora and making a reference about the clean beauty line, and I even one of the employees, I remember saying, "It's not necessarily what's not in it, it's just what's in it." And, what's in it might meet those standards, but they could also contain things that are not so great for you,
Right.
but that's not in it versus out of it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I
No,
thought,
absolutely.
wow, that's such a like light bulb moment
I
too.
know. And that's why when people ask me, how do I do this? The best thing is to educate yourself and pick up any bottle and look at the ingredients and do a quick scan. There are phenomenal apps out there, but I always caution that it is a starting point, not an end all be all. They don't know the percentages. Most companies are not going to give people their formulations to test for safety. So it's generalized, but it's a phenomenal place to start.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And that was one thing that I was gonna mention too about your line that I really appreciate was the fact that a lot of your products come in glass over plastic, and I think like, yes, glass is an amazing thing to have, but it's what's in the products has such a big impact versus, like you said, if it has to be in plastic, it's not the end of the world necessarily. It's not like you're heating things up
Right.
in the plastic, but that was one thing. I always appreciate these um beauty brands such as yourself that are putting things into glass as often as they possibly can.
And we have to thank you. And we have to be careful. There's a trade-off, right? Let's face it. The glass manufacturing isn't the most energy efficient clean. So
Mm,
there is no right answer.
yeah.
It is just what can you do that's best for you and your family based upon what your standards personally are.
Yeah. And what you know right now, like in 10 years, something might change down the line, but right now it's like, this is what I know.
Absolutely. When I first started, one of the cleanest preservatives was phenoxyethanol. And now
Mhm.
it's an irritant and there are ties to it. But it was like literally in the books of being the cleanest, greenest, you know, preservative. So again, what we know then versus what we know, you could just do your best in the time that you have. You can't make yourself crazy either because that's going to contribute to stress.
Yeah. Yeah. No, honestly, yeah, I know. It's absolutely wild. What is a standout product in your skincare line that makes a huge impact in someone's skin health?
It's hard because everything is bio-individual, right? So
Mhm.
what makes such an impact for somebody isn't going to make another impact for somebody else. It depends, right? Everybody's skin's different. Everybody's body's different. All the medications they're on, all those things. For me, I would say our squalene facial oil, it is one ingredient derived from olives. It is Cosmos certified. So you are getting creme de la creme, the best possible, which is why our squalene facial oil costs more than other brands because of how we're sourcing it. It's like when you go to Whole Foods, you get like all the different level chickens, they're it's the same thing. The quality of the ingredients count, how they're harvested. So I would say the squalene is totally stand out. product. It is just certified Cosmos squalene derived from olives. That's it. And it's a moisturizer. You can add it to your existing moisturizers. You can add it to, I liken it to Windex from my big feet fat Greek wedding. To me, it does everything. It's great for my hair. It's great for your scalp health. You can mix it in with foundation. So that's one of the standout products I just think is, your body produces it in abundance until your mid 20s. So why not use something that your body was already producing and do it clean?
Yeah. I have a selfish question. How
Sure.
did you find out about all of these ingredients to formulate with your skincare line? Were you reading books? Like, what made you
Yeah.
decide to do like the squalene?
I read books.
Yeah.
I was the first brand to come out with a single ingredient squalane product on the market way back when. Um, I did a lot of research. When you're given 6 months to live, you get really, really finite about how you're going to spend it. And I was hitting the books hard. And when I started to read things in the NIH, and I have the physician's desk reference for like naturopathic and herbalists and stuff like that. So, I mean, I go deep diving on this stuff when I first started. Now I work with some incredible chemists and formulators who understand and have the same ethos that I do, and they bring things to us. I have an incredible woman on my product development team who's just as committed as I am to it too. So it's a team approach.
Would you say that I'm gonna struggle with this word again. Squalene,
Mhm.
the
I see it
facial.
all different ways. So go for it.
Would you say that is like if someone could only get one product for your from your line, would that be the product because it is also so versatile?
Yeah, I would say that or the CoQ10 toner. And I say that because I know because you're so there are three products in my line that have been the best sellers continually. The CoQ10 toner and the brightening cleanser switch for first place.
Mm.
They go back and forth. And then the squalene facial oil.
I gotta tell you, I've never found a toner before. Like, I had it in my line because I was like, people tell me I should have a toner, but I never found one that I was like, "This is fabulous." Like, they were just like, "Eh." And that CoQ10 toner, I mean, I've talked about it so much. I use it for removing my mouth tape in the morning as well. Like, it is my skin feels so soft. I don't know what you use in it, but it is to me, a toner sometimes implies drying, and that is not the case with this toner at all. I love
Yes.
it.
Thank you. And that's how I looked at it. I grew up during the days of astringent.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it was alcohol laden and it was stripping the oils from my skin, and which I desperately needed.
Mm,
And so our toner does not have alcohol in it. It has hyaluronic acid, so really binding that moisture to the skin. You've got CoQ10, mother of antioxidants, papaya, sage, aloe. I mean, it is a heavy hitter, and it just I'm obsessed with it as well. I will
yeah,
admit I use that one every day without fail, like every
yeah.
day, several times a day.
It's so good, and yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I remember after using some toners, when you would be like, because your
Oh
skin
yeah.
would be so dry from things,
Yes,
and
yes,
this, I'm just like, every time I go past the bathroom, I'm like, "Spritz it." Like, I could
absolutely.
be your
No, please.
spokeswoman for this tone. I love it so much.
Preach, my friend, preach all you want. I have no problem with it.
What is your AM and your PM skincare? Are you swapping things out on a weekly basis, maybe doing exfoliants? Like, what is your daily ritual? And then maybe what is something that you do on a weekly basis?
Yeah, so weekly is easy. I do mask. I'm a big fan of masks. I love a really great clay mask that's not drying. So we have a mask, which is out of stock. I'm so sorry, but it is, which helps to, it has glycolic and salicylic. I love that, right? So that's a once a week spa day, Sunday must have in my routine. So I love a good mask. I don't over mask, but I do every Sunday. That's when I clean my makeup brushes. That's when I take some time for myself. It's a whole spa day Sunday thing. This past Sunday, I also added on a deep tissue massage. I got a massage for an hour and a half. So like that's my spa day.
Yeah.
Then I would say every morning I tone. So I use our CoQ10 toner. Then I'll use the stem cell serum and our daily vitamin infusion. If I really need that barrier protection, I use the restorative, not the retinol alternative cream. So I can use the traditional retinol that has all the benefits without the drawbacks because it's rambutan and paracress, which are the actives in it. And then also has squalene and orange milk tree extract. So That's my, and then I'll use like an eye cream or a serum depending on what I need. At night, it's, oh, by the way, if you notice, I don't really wash my face in the morning. Like, I'm in the shower, obviously it gets wet, but when I come out, I use that toner and I remove any excess sebum. Why? Because I do a great job cleansing at night. I mean, I go in nasal folds, like I do the whole lymphatic drainage. I am in there washing.
Mhm.
And then I will exfoliate at night, probably every other night, sometimes every night, depending on what my skin needs. But I don't use a physical exfoliator. I use something with like a gentle glycolic or a polyhydroxy acid. So that's my routine. And then I go in with the same thing, the stem cell daily vitamin infusion every night because I want all the oils. And then I'll use the retinol alternative cream at night as well. And I do an eye serum and the eye cream at night because I want all the goodness.
No, I love it too, and it's so simple. I think sometimes social media can showcase like these 10 and 12 step skincare routine. And I remember not only thinking like, wow, this is like a lot to do, but I'm like, this is a lot of money to be throwing away on 12 different ingredients
Yes,
that, or 12, not ingredients, 12 different products. And that was like the last few years, I've been really making a more mindful shift of just like dumbing it down and, keeping a few select products in.
that's
And
it.
yeah, it's all you really need.
Absolutely. I don't go crazy at night or in the morning on products. You see, it's very simple. Now, please know I have access to a ton of different skincare. I'm always testing products and whatnot because I obviously am not going to bring something out that I'm not going to be able to use. So I do that like when we're in heavy testing mode, but otherwise I'm usually testing on my hands and things like that. But I don't think you need 20 zillion products. But again, it also, everybody's different. Sometimes it's not a need, it's a want. And
Yeah.
that's okay too. If somebody wants that 20-step routine because that's what sets the stage up for them to chill out and go into that sleep mode, fantastic. Do you need it? Most likely not.
I'm going to ask a question that I never hear people ask on podcasts. And I did a video on it and it went viral about what not to use when you're pregnant or breastfeeding. Is there anything in your product line that you would recommend someone not use who is pregnant or breastfeeding?
I think anything with salicylic, I think you need to be careful of course. That said, I think anything you put on your body when you're pregnant, you should be vetting with a doctor.
Yeah.
I think that you don't know. I'm someone here who, had two very difficult pregnancies, put me on bed rest, almost lost them both, lost one of my daughter was a twin, lost the twin. Like, you don't know what you're putting in on contraindications with medicine. So I think everybody is different. And I would be very mindful about what you're putting on your body, especially when you're pregnant.
Yeah. No, I know. It was at the time I was going through a little bit of postpartum hair loss and I won't call out the brand name, but it's a very popular brand name and it has retinol in it for hair oil. And I remember saying, don't be using this if you are because I went with the intention of buying it and then I looked at the ingredients and I was like, "Oh my God, I can't use this."
Yeah. See, that's why I don't have retinol in my traditional retinol because only because I can't use it. I wanted the benefits of a traditional retinol. Trust me. I mean, I'm 53. Mama needs something, but I
You
found
look fabulous.
thank you very much. But I think that's SPF. I think that's taking care of my skin. That's getting regular checks at the doctor for dermatologist. Um, but I think you have to be very mindful about what you are putting on your skin and where they're getting the ingredients from. So
Yeah. No,
like, and
absolutely.
anytime anybody calls me and says, what can I use? And I said, you're not legally, number one, I have to be so careful. But second, but more importantly, because this is something personal, you need to talk to your doctor because every pregnancy is different and you never know.
Yeah.
I can't possibly know what your body can and cannot tolerate.
What are you doing on a daily basis to support your overall health? What types of food are you eating? Are you doing any sort of other wellness rituals that you think really help support your overall health?
I am on a healing journey right now. That is for sure, especially knowing that I now have another one. And so sleep is part of it. That is probably the biggest thing. Movement, exercise. I'm really cutting off as much as possible the ultra processed foods. So that means cooking a lot more at home, which is very difficult in this rental. I'm also building my dream home and farm with my family. So that's another part. So I'll get to have my beautiful garden and hopefully a greenhouse again. So really getting back to where I started, going back to basics. And I think that's a really good lesson is sometimes less is more and we don't need to overcomplicate. So those are some of the things. Movement for sure. Obviously, I'm gone off of coffee again. Not that I think that there's anything inherently terrible about it, but for my body and Crohn's, I don't drink alcohol anymore. That was another big shift I did 2 years ago. And not that I was a big drinker. I just said, yeah, it's not in alignment. It's not, there is no reason. We know it's not good for you.
Yeah. No, I've never been a huge drinker. When I got pregnant, I was like, whatever. Like I don't care about alcohol so much. I will tell you though, coffee broke my heart. It was the hardest thing about my pregnancy. And I wasn't a huge, like literally a cup a day. People were like, were you like some raging coffee addict? No, no. I had 1 cup a day, but it was the thing I missed the most. And I had a great pregnancy. And it was just like daily, I'd be like, I miss coffee so much. Like my husband would walk by with a cup and I'd be like, can I just smell it?
It's so funny. Yes. Like when my husband like opens up the coffee pack, I'm like,
I know.
you know what? And then I'll take a sip and I'm like, I don't even like it, but I like the experience of
Hmm.
having it.
Yeah.
That makes any sense.
Yeah. No, I know. I feel you on that. What is this farm going to look like? Are you having
Oh,
animals? Are you having like what is the vibe here? I'm so excited for you.
I'm so excited. So we actually had to sell our house. Listen, it was a rough few years financially, and so we
Mhm.
downsized, and we are now. But then we had this incredible opportunity to build our dream house. So we downsized, and we're building a modern farm style barn like type of house. So then modern farmhouse. It's one level. So it's not that I have to worry about, steps. That's something where we really are taking into consideration my potential issues down the road because this is my forever home. I'm not moving. I've told my husband the only way that I'm not living here is if you actually move me out back 6 feet under. Like I'm done. This is it. Um, it is the I'm fighting for chickens. We'll see. I think I'm gonna nail that one.
Mhm.
But it'll be like a farm, like vegetables and edible flowers. And I plan on putting in an orchard. We have about 4 acres. There's a 2,800 square foot barn on it. So my son is turning it into his glass blowing studio. But it backs up on a um like an animal sanction, like it's it's sort of like you can go and like have parties there, but all the animals are like rescue animals. So I go up to my back like gate and the goats and pigs and sheep like just come up to me. It's magical. Magical.
Yeah. No, it's literally my husband and I have been talking about this so much. We are staying with my parents right now. We've rented out our house and that's the one thing we keep talking about is like we want to have our own little like homes. We keep saying more like homestead and stuff because I
Yeah,
do love to travel as well. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm allowed to, if I've got a goat and cows and
right,
chickens and stuff. Like, but then we got to find somebody. So, but I'm like, I just like the chickens, maybe a goat or two, like, and the
right.
orchard, like, it sounds so
I
great.
know. I still can't even believe I'm doing this. Like,
Yeah.
but we are taking a risk and we are building this and it is really based on getting back to basics and health and what we're spending our money on is
Mhm.
things like an infrared sauna. Like that's really important for somebody with rheumatoid arthritis. That's something that I need. That was okay. How do we build that into plan? Things like that. Not building this huge, ridiculous house. It's about 3,000 square feet. I don't need, my kids are getting older. They're 24 and 21. So it's really about what can I grow outside, getting a greenhouse to start early, extending the season, really going back to basics for me, which it's just so much fun. But by the way, I was like, I want goats, I want a mini Highland, I want this, I want chickens, and my husband's like, and you travel for work, and I was like,
Mm.
yes, that's not gonna work. So maybe chickens, which
Chickens, I feel like that, like they can just,
yeah,
they're fine.
it's
You
not,
don't
it's
have it.
not.
Mm.
You can go away for a few days and they'll be fine. But don't forget, I also have two children.
Yeah,
They're probably coming back to the, nest. And my neighbor has like 30. So she's like, yeah,
perfect. She's got it. What's a few extra for her to look after every once in a while?
that's what I figure.
Actually, before I go, I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned an infrared sauna. Is there anything else that is a non-negotiable in your house that you are looking to implement? Is there like a water system that you plan to put
So
in?
funny you were asking that. So obviously HEPA filters and things like that, and taking a look at the paint and the what are we using for insulation and all those things. Those are all important in the materials that we're using. But the problem is a lot of the really healthier ones are
Mm.
so costly that we couldn't afford to do it. Um, I want to put in a reverse osmosis water system. So we haven't even, the well is there, we haven't even tapped in or anything like that. So we have to see what the water situation is. But I really want to put one of those in that specifically can filter out some of the, like, you know, forever the PFAS and glutam. I always say it wrong. So I'm not even going to pronounce, not even going to say it. But like getting rid of like cassafate. I think that's how I'm probably butchering it, but just trying to remove some of the harmful chemicals that can be present. So that's a big one. So if anybody knows of any, please DM me personally because I am looking for this.
I actually have a connection for you afterwards, and I believe she's in New York State as well. And she had breast cancer. She had, and so that was her thing, was to swap everything in her house to be non-toxic, and that could be a nice
Yes,
serendipitous connection.
yes, please, please.
Yeah.
Oh, and other things that I do is like my cleaning, materials and things like that. I'm really mindful of using bamboo sheets, making sure, like if you don't think about that, you're wrapping your body in it. And then what are you putting on your body and how is that potentially being absorbed? So
Yeah.
exactly.
I want to be mindful of your time, Indy. This has been such an incredible conversation.
That
If
has
people want to learn more about you, maybe they want to buy your skincare, where can everybody buy Indy Lee skincare and where can everybody find you?
Okay, so buying us is easy, ndie.com, INDIELEE.com. But you can also find us on Ulta.com and some Ultas. We're in every Blue Mercury, any of the clean retailers, the Credos, the detox markets,
Yeah.
your Canada, so well.ca, Green Kiss. So we're in all those. Nordstrom as well. So we're in about 2,200, I think, distribution points and growing. But to find me and reach out to me personally, Instagram is where I hang out. I know I've got to do better on TikTok, but my Instagram is Indie Lee, just INDIELEE. That is me personally. Nobody monitors that but me. So please know if you have a personal question, please don't hesitate. You can reach on the brand, which is Indie_Lee, but Indie Lee is me. Just DM me. I'm happy to have a conversation.
Thank you so much for this conversation. I will make sure everything is linked in the show notes. Please go get that CoQ10 toner. It's one of my favorites. And your citrus scrub. We didn't even talk
Oh
about
my
that
God,
one.
that's the first one I ever made in my kitchen. I made it in my kitchen before I even launched.
I I literally just opened the lid and my husband was like, "It smells like a pina colada in here. What
It
is
is,
that?"
it is spectacular, I
Yeah.
will say.
Yeah, I know. And yeah, that's another thing too, is like my husband keeps stealing all the skincare now. Like it,
You know what? Good,
I
good.
know. I know. Better? Than what the alternative is, you know? Thank you so
Exactly.
much for this conversation.
Thank you so much.